namesake. Happy Wednesday. We've got a jam-packed show for you with Freddie Coleman, Brian Windhorst, and it's Wednesday. So we've got Chris Mad Dog Russo in studio. And fellas, let's get the party started. We're going to head out west because things got a lot sparklier for Russell Westbrook in Tinseltown. $47.1 million sparklers, to be exact. That's the price as Westbrook has opted in for the 2022-23 season to return to the Lakers. Sources told our very own Adrian Wojnarowski today Westbrook, who was a 9-time All-Star and 2017 NBA Most Valuable Player, is entering the final season of his original 5-year, $206 million contract. And from the West Coast to the East Coast, after creating a list of teams he would have liked the Nets to consider working with on a sign-and-trade deal if they couldn't agree on terms for him to stay in Brooklyn, and the Lakers were the only team known to be interested. Kyrie Irving has opted his $36.5 million option with the Brooklyn Nets for the next season. Woj reported that today, which leads us to wonder, do the Lakers or the Nets have more question marks? Freddie, I'll start with you.
Oh, for me, it's the Brooklyn Nets. I don't think there's any doubt about it because of one guy, and that guy's Kyrie Irving, because right now he's the most polarizing figure in the world of sports. And I've said it before, guys, and Victoria, and I'll say it again. I don't think he is a dumb person. I think he's very intelligent, very smart, but sometimes he acts too smart for the room, or he thinks he's more intelligent than the room. When you're going to put yourself out there like that, the way he's been able to put himself out like that, you're going to have a lot of people come at you or support you. So he's the main guy, as far as I'm concerned, why this is a loaded question, as you see on the graphics right now. Because of him, that's why all these questions are more with the Brooklyn Nets than the Los Angeles Lakers. Not because of Kevin Durant, not because the Nets have not mattered in a New York Knicks town for a long, long time, otherwise known as forever, but because Kyrie Irving is that polarizing kind of guy, and all that attention is focused on him.
This is the first time I've met Freddie here. What a nice guy.
He's a great guy.
Here we go.
Lost. He's lost with his opinion.
Here we go.
Oh, boy.
Here we
What
go.
a guy.
Here's the
first
setup.
minute.
Stephen
Come on.
A. I can yell at him and I get upset. He's such a good guy. I'm going to have
Nice
trouble
guy.
here, but he's wrong.
Okay, here it is.
But
We
I mean,
knew it.
There we go.
You have to put the Lakers in this category in worse trouble because one reason is age.
Yeah.
And the other reason is health. Who knows on Anthony Davis? LeBron's 37. You have to figure, and Freddie's right. His biggest issue for Kyrie, he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. So, but I'm going to think for a second that for once he's going to realize that the world, take it easy, all right? You took your 36 million, play 70 games. You had a terrible year last year with the vaccination. He got wiped out in the first round. So maybe he'll be on his best behavior and he'll want to play and not go out, take a week off when his kid, somebody's got a birthday party they did 2 years ago. So as a result, I think you'll see the best Kyrie here in 2022.
Okay.
And Westbrook, boy, America's a nice place when you can sign for a 40 opt-in for $48 million off the year that he had. So I think the Lakers have Mitch, a new coach too with him. I think the Lakers got many more issues than the Nets do.
What's this question say? It says, which team has more question marks? Freddie, the Lakers have 6 guys under contract.
Yeah.
I don't even know who there's going to be their starting lineup. But I think both of these teams, like recently, I think Sean Marks, was seen meeting with Rob Pelinka. Can you imagine what they're saying? They're both going, boy, I wonder if Russell Westbrook will change who he is. He's one of the most interesting, amazing, iron-headed guys we've ever seen. Maybe he'll change. What do you think? That's what he said. He's going, well, maybe Kyrie.
Yeah.
He's one of the most freest
Right.
thinkers and goes left and right and right and left. Maybe he'll change and he'll actually focus. They're both like, oh, my God, what are we going to do? They both need these guys to do. They need them to come through, which is why it's not completely ridiculous that at some point this year, if it's not going well for either of them, they can be like, hey, what do you think? What do you think? Because both of these guys are extraordinarily talented. Both of these guys' contracts are now in their last year, and both these guys have huge incentive to do a certain thing, and they still might not do it. And so who's got more questions? It's the Lakers. They have no players on their team. But both of these teams are losing sleep about what's going to happen with their star players.
Well, here's the deal with that. The Lakers put themselves in that situation by going all in with LeBron. They allowed LeBron to play general manager from this standpoint. The Brooklyn Nets are different from the standpoint in terms of why I think they have more questions based on one guy, Kyrie Irving, because when you're a desperate organization that has not won a championship since Dr. J played for the New York Nets, we're talking about 2 franchises in 2 different places later. since the New York Nets have mattered in the city of New York. You bring in and sign it with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant and everything that comes with it, all of a sudden now, that's why that's the bigger question more than any of the Lakers questions. The Brooklyn Nets have to be championship or bust. Nobody's talking about that, the Los Angeles Lakers right now, because of a loaded Western Conference. To your point about we don't know who's going to be on the roster, they may have to go back to old YouTube tapes and bring back Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the skyhook to see if that's going to work.
Yes.
But the Brooklyn Nets right now have a team that they basically told everybody, we're going to win a championship in Brooklyn. We're no longer going to make this a New York Knicks town. Good luck with that. So if that's going to be your case with championship or bust, as many questions with who's going to be in the Lakers roster, I'm not saying Brian and Chris, you guys are wrong with that standpoint, but when your main drag, your main bag is championship or bust, that overrides any other questions on the other side of town when it comes to Los Angeles Lakers.
100%. Now, one thing, I don't think Durant wants to have anything to do with Westbrook, and they would go nuts. He would quietly if they traded Irving for Westbrook. He's got to play with him. He left Westbrook, as it turns out, the first time.
Sure.
He don't want to play with Westbrook again. So I don't know how it would work. Cap-wise, you can do it, but how would Westbrook play with Durant?
I don't know where Durant is right now with what's happening. I mean, he's committed to Kyrie multiple times in a row. He committed to him when he signed here, when he could have gone elsewhere. To me, it's one of the most amazing things in the 20 years I've covered the NBA, that the choices that Durant had. I understand he wanted to leave Golden State. I'll take that off the table.
Sure.
He could have gone to the Clippers. He could have been where Paul George is. He could have had he could have gone to the Knicks. But he came to meet up with Kyrie. Then, a couple years later, he didn't have to extend his contract last year. He extended that contract with no opt-out. That's amazing. He's like, things are going great here. I'm opting in. And then last year, when the Harden-Kyrie thing went like this, he supported Kyrie Irving. When the team said, no, we're not going to have a part-time player in a vaccination issue, he supported Kyrie Irving. He has supported him and supported him and supported him.
Yeah, I don't get it.
So over and over, I would have to say that in this moment that Kevin Durant would probably support Kyrie Irving. He comes on this podcast earlier this week and he goes, that's between them. That's between them.
Yeah.
Now, how does he feel today? How is he going to feel next week? How is he going to feel on September 20th when they come back together? These are questions I don't know. And I know, because I've seen Stephen A. over in that seat get into this with KD. When you try to say, this is what KD's thinking, KD roars back. That doesn't just play for the media. It also plays for the team. The team can't sit there and just say, well, let's assume how KD's thinking. So that is the question mark. When you say that that they're going to go do a certain thing, you're trying to, and I don't just mean you, but you're trying to base what you think Kyrie is going to do, which is completely unpredictable.
Oh, you can't predict.
And what you think Durant is going to do, which is the most important thing for the organization.
Yeah, he's the best player in the league, Durant. I still think pound for pound. Yeah, you're right. I don't know how it's amazing he has latched himself on to Kyrie Irving. I mean, really?
It's one of the most amazing things I've seen in the NBA.
I mean, he's nuts. And I'll tell you right now, and everybody read it here. JJ sat here last week and said differently. If I know a lot of Knicks fans, so do you. There is no way a Knicks fan wanted to root for Kyrie Irving and Madison.
Oh, God, no.
There is not a 40 years doing radio. The Knicks fan wanted nothing to do with Kyrie Irving. So I don't know if he had that many other options. I don't know what team wants him because there's so many distractions and so many things you got to put up with. He's great when he puts his mind to it and he just plays. You love him.
He's a 40%er. If you go study his career, first off, he's only averaged 55 games a year. He's now played a decade.
That's another problem.
55 games a year. 40% of the time, Kyrie Irving is absolutely unbelievable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No
I
doubt.
was sitting there in Oracle Arena when he hit the shot. I've watched him do things that I remember I asked him one time, I go, Kyrie, you do things with the ball. Because I would watch him at practice in Cleveland. And in practice, I would never see him do these crazy shots. I'm like, when do you practice that? I don't see you ever practice it. He goes, I've been practicing it my whole life. Okay?
Wow.
So his innate ability is unbelievable. But it's 40% of the time.
Yeah.
And because he's either not there or he's somewhere else up here. And so when you sign him or you go get him, you realize, based on his track record, and listen, maybe this year it's 58%.
I would think if there's a year, Freddie, where he's going to come out and give you 70 games.
It should be this year.
If it's not this year, it's never going to be.
Right. Here's the deal with that, and you make a fair point in terms of if it's going to be this year. But when Kyrie Irving, and I said it earlier this week, Victoria was here, some people have a strong will, and some people have a strong won't. he has a very strong won't.
He does.
If he doesn't want to do something, and
not gonna
Brian,
do it.
you know this, he is not going to do it. You can tell him this table is made of this, and Kyrie will say it's paper mache, and you are not going to sway his opinion. That doesn't make him so much off kilter. It just makes him who he is. And if you sign up for a guy like that, despite his gifted ability to put the ball in the hole, you got to take everything that comes with it. My dad, Freddie Coleman, told me something a long time ago. Something with guys like this, they're just like fire. You can't get too close because you're the one that's going to wind up getting burned. And that's the concern for the Brooklyn Nets and Kevin Durant.
And Kevin has repeatedly gone to the fire.
Exactly. He keeps going. It's like somebody tells him the stove is hot. No, it's not. The stove is hot. No, it's not. At a certain point, when you burn all your fingers, is it going to resonate? Kevin Durant, to your point, Brian, last week in the podcast, he tried to stay out of it, and I thought that was the right thing to do. You don't get involved with another man's money in an organization. But if you're going to be an alpha dog or be considered an alpha dog, then what are you going to do to make sure that everybody is on the same page? And that's the biggest question. Are the Brooklyn Nets ever going to be on the same page in a championship or bust situation?
Well, and another headline maker is obviously James Harden, who is an unbelievable player, makes a lot of headlines, stirs up a lot of things, and the deadline for James Harden to opt into his $47.37 million player option for the upcoming 2022-23 season is at 5 p.m. today, and Woj is reporting that Harden would be more than likely to opt in than sign an extension for 2 more seasons at a substantial number, but still lower than a max salary figure, which brings us to what is the Sixers' ceiling presently as it is constructed?
Well, I mean, listen, Harden, we have, he's never been great in postseason scenarios anyway, where he's the same, he's never been great. I've always thought he's a little overrated. Hey, wait, Van Gundy tells me he's better than Jerry West. Jeff, he's not better than Jerry West. I'm sorry. Don't go. I don't care what he does.
I love when you start talking about guys from the 60s and 70s.
This is the first chance out. There you go. You haven't heard me do this yet, have you?
Oh, yeah, I have. I can't wait for chapter 2. I want to hear this.
It's coming.
It's coming. The show is young.
I kind of feel the same way with Harden I do with Kyrie. If there's ever an off season where he's not going to go to Vegas and he's going to realize, you know what, I'm going to work on my game 6-7 hours a day, get myself in primo shape, and really play with Embiid 70 games, this is the year. He played awful, except for the one game. He played awful against the Heat in the postseason last year. He was terrible in the last 2 games, got booed out of the arena, although I was in Ireland, I didn't hear it, but I listened to you. They told me they booed him out of the arena. So as a result of that, you would think that light a little fire under him. I know he's a little different. You know him better than me. I would think this year he'd give you a pretty good effort, so I'll say the ceiling for the Sixers is a little higher than normal.
Yeah.
In the next couple days, we could have a changing of the way James Harden is viewed in Philadelphia.
Okay.
The Sixers are operating right now like they're about to have some salary flexibility. And it looks like they're going to try to sign P.J. Tucker. The only way they can do that is if they trade a player, which I don't see, or if James Harden is ready to take a pay cut off of this $47 million right now. Now, it doesn't have to happen this way, but James Harden could be on the verge of opting out of his contract and not only not taking a max, but lowering his salary this year to open up space to add a player. And so this is a guy who demanded out of Houston, demanded out of Brooklyn. His first order of business when he got to Philadelphia was to say, I know you want me to pick up this option so that we know that there's no drama next summer, but I'm actually not going to pick it up. I know that I said I was going to pick it up, but I'm not going to pick it up. Imagine your first order of business with a team that's just stuck their neck out to trade for you is to kind of go back on the word that you already made. Having said all that, he might be about to really help them build this team.
Fair.
So let's see what he does with this option today. Woj is right. There's no concern that he's not going to be a Sixer. And I don't think he's signing for a max. But he could really, and remember, he played with P.J. Tucker in Houston when Daryl Morey was there.
So he knows him.
And
likes him.
You mentioned that series. 2 years ago, Milwaukee with P.J. Tucker plays Miami. They lose. Miami loses. They go, boy, we'd really like to have that P.J. Tucker guy. Last year, Philly plays Miami with P.J. Tucker.
Yeah.
And even after the last game, Embiid was like, boy, P.J. Tucker was really good. And now they're trying to bring him in. And Harden could be facilitating that. So obviously what really matters is what he does on the court, the condition he's in. But James Harden could be shifting a little bit in his priorities and his team, his willingness to help the team in this next 48 hours.
Okay. I love what you guys have said. Here's the problem what you had to say. Joel Embiid told us exactly what he thought of James Harden after they lost in the playoff series. That James Harden is not there anymore. whatever James Harden you're going to get, is it going to be good enough to be a team to contend in the Eastern Conference? Joel Embiid already laid that out by telling everybody, we can't allow him to be the Robin on this basketball team. If it has to be Tyrese Maxey, they're hoping Tobias Harris. We thought somebody didn't play well in the playoff series. That guy, Tobias Harris, getting a lot of money. You can't just be part of the Justice League on the outside looking in. You got to go help people take down the villain. And he didn't do that for the Philadelphia 76ers. Yeah. So if they're relying on James Harden to be the Robin to the Batman that is Joel Embiid says, I can't trust that Robin. When Joel Embiid speaks, I'm just like the old E.F. Hutton commercials. I'm going to listen. I'm going to pay attention to him. So if he's telling us that already, I know they wait for a full training camp. You're right, Wendy. You're right, Chris. You got to see what he's going to look like. What kind of shape is he going to be in? Is he going to commit? But even if he does, Joel Embiid has basically told everybody, I don't know if we can rely on that guy to make us a championship team. And if that's how he felt and he still feels that way, I think they're sealing the Eastern Conference semifinals. They'll beat somebody in the first round. They'll be a top 4, top 5 seed, maybe a top 3 seed. But once they get past the second round, you're going to run into maybe a Brooklyn, maybe Milwaukee, maybe Miami, or maybe a Boston. I'll trust those 4 teams because, like you said, Chris, in the playoffs, as great as James Harden has been in the playoffs, he's less than wonderful. He allowed a Houston Rockets team in a Game 6 where Steph Curry went 0 for the first half, and they lost that game at home. And that has continued in his playoff career. That's a guy I'm not going to trust because Joel Embiid, like E.F. Hutton, I'm paying attention, told everybody that's not the guy we're getting, and that's not the guy that's going to help us win.
Well, hopefully Embiid did that as a little motivating scenario.
I hope so.
If I was James Harden and I'm as good as I'm supposed to be, and I got the center of my team saying that, I'm going to pay attention.
You should.
And I'm going to say, no, I'll prove him wrong. And so maybe Embiid's trying to play a little coach thing. I don't know if that's the case.
That's fair.
But if he does that, if Harden it's fascinating. If Harden and Irving do what they should do and realize they embarrassed their franchises last year, they put their stars in harm's way, Durant and Embiid, and take this summer to stay out of the news, get themselves in shape, and make a commitment to basketball, both teams could be very, very good.
No doubt.
It's a wonderful story.
It's probably not going to happen.
It's a great little fantasy.
It's a wonderful life, like the movie. We'll see.
It's a wonderful life. Well, James Harden and Russell Westbrook are both looking to bounce back after having down seasons by their standards, and they both averaged their lowest points since their years as Thunder teammates, with Westbrook failing to reach 20 points per game. Harden was better in each major category besides field goal percentage. Would you rather have Russ or Harden on your team? Wendy, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I'm seeing Harden potentially take steps to address where he is in his career.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that from Russell Westbrook. I haven't seen it. And the new coaching staff in LA, led by Darvin Ham, is attempting to set some parameters for Westbrook. One of his big complaints, I got to tell you, when you go back and look at the things that Russ said the day after the season ended, his exit interview this year, people gave Doc Rivers a lot of flack for what he said about Ben Simmons the year before in that sort of exit interview, and it was used against him for months. That was a rational statement that Doc made. Some of the things that Russ was saying, in my view, were irrational. And to listen to those comments where he was blaming everybody for his failures, like I would not have believed that the Lakers could possibly bring him back. Not only did he blame everybody else, he took direct shots at LeBron and Anthony Davis. I mean, he shivved Frank Vogel, but everybody knew Vogel was gone. He shivved these teammates. So they're trying to bring him back and convince him to change. When I just heard him say a couple of months ago, it's not me that's got to change, you got to change. So to me, I think what the coaches are doing with Westbrook is saying, okay, here's the new rules. Follow these rules, and you can have a role. If you don't follow those rules, to the bench, or worse, to home. So I'm going to give Westbrook the benefit of the doubt, and we're going to see what he shows up in doing. But they came in, the first thing Darvin Ham said when he sat down there was like, Russ, here's what you're going to do. You're going to play defense. You're going to sacrifice. He said it for him. So to me, Westbrook hasn't shown any sign of conciliation. Harden, especially if he takes this contract, is showing me some signs of reconciliation. So, and not only that, Harden is younger, and even though he's not in the greatest shape, he's a much more dynamic player. I'd much rather have Harden, especially a guy who's willing to help me build my team.
Here's why I'm taking Russell Westbrook, and it doesn't really have anything to do with X's and O's and Jimmy's and Joe's. I guess I want to see him prove people wrong. And it's a hard pick. I'll be completely transparent here because it doesn't make sense for me to say I would rather take Westbrook over Harden. But my heart wants him to succeed because so many people doubted him, and they continue to doubt him. And yeah, Russell Westbrook, Wendy, has not helped himself. He can be very, very Superman complex. I can cure things in a single bound because that's what he believes he has to do, but from a collective team standpoint. So I understand where his mental capacity is when it comes to that. But my heart wants to believe that he's going to figure this out and say, my way has not worked with this organization. Darvin Ham has said, here, to your point, here's your list, check it twice to make sure that you're going to be better and we're going to be better. I'm hoping that Russell Westbrook gets the message because my heart wants him to get the message. Because Russell Westbrook, to me, signifies what draft picks are supposed to be. Where people say, you're not going to be this, you're not going to be that, and that guy became an MVP player, and nobody saw that coming from Russell Westbrook. I'm hoping that as intelligent as he is, that he'll be able to figure that out because my heart wants him to figure that out because there's some good there with Russell Westbrook that if he allows that to come out and be more of a team player, that can make a major, major difference, not just for him, but for the Los Angeles
Be a nice
Lakers.
story.
Use it as fuel. Yeah.
Westbrook is great on a team when he had the triple-double, on a team that's not that good. By his force of will
That's fair.
and his competitiveness, they'll win 43 games.
That's fair.
That's what he'll do. Harden's got a better upside, and I'm picking poisons here, but I'll take Harden because the two things that Westbrook can't do kills you in postseason. He can't shoot, and he turns the ball over like crazy. So in the fourth quarter of huge games, not Sacramento in January, I'm talking playoff games, he will not make threes because he's an inconsistent outside shooter, and you can't drive to the basket. Defenses are packed. They're not going to get you to the free throw line. And he turns the ball over like crazy. He's careless. So I don't love it, but you gave me Victoria the choice. I'll take Harden.
Well, who's going to have the better season, Lakers or Sixers?
I think you got to say the Sixers.
The Lakers have 6 players.
I know.
I
had to ask.
I don't have any idea what the Lakers are going to be. The Lakers could win 7 or 8 more games, which would be terrific. Any team would look to win 7 or 8 more games. They could win 7 or 8 more games and still not make the proper playoffs.
Sure.
They were 11th in the West last year.
Wow. Yeah, it's the Sixers. There's no doubt about that. And everybody in the West is going to get better.
Yeah.
Think about that. Memphis, I want to see how Memphis handles being the hunted instead of the hunter.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I want to see that because it's one thing to say that they're renting space in Golden State's head. Well, Golden State has 4 championships, and you don't as an organization lately in the last 8 years. I want to see how they handle that. I want to see what Dallas is going to do with Jalen Brunson. That guy's going to exit that basketball team. It's going to be Luka and the Lukettes, how they're going to be able to make that work, although getting Christian Wood is a really good signing by the Dallas Mavericks. Here's another team, the Phoenix Suns. They won 64 games last year. Nobody's talking about them in terms of being a contender in the Western Conference. That's how deep the Western Conference. You go from a 64-win team to maybe a team that no one's talking about that can still make the playoffs. I want to see how that's going to work. Philadelphia, on the other side, at least they've been in the playoffs. They have a pedigree to know, okay, we know what has to work. And I wonder how much of this, gentleman and lady, how much can this be put on Doc Rivers? Because we can say James Harden is, Joel Embiid that, Maurice Thybulle, Tyrese Maxey. Doc Rivers has got to be better in the playoffs lately than what we've seen. He's got to be better coaching and making adjustments in the playoffs than what we've seen. But at least they've been there. On the other side, when it comes to the Lakers and everybody else in the West, that's going to be tough.
Don't forget Murray back with Denver.
Jamal
That's gonna
Murray,
make them
Michael
a lot
Porter
better.
Jr.,
He
if his
is
back
great.
is not an issue, and Michael Malone can coach.
Yeah,
He can coach it down.
and Murray's a great player.
Yep.
Well, speaking of adjustments, let's talk about the Knicks, shall we? Because
We
the
have
New York
to.
Knicks, we're going to have to. The New York Knicks cleared up $19 million, an overwhelming contract offer in the neighborhood of $110 million, casual, to free agent guard Jalen Brunson, and sources have told ESPN. So, fellas, do you like what they're doing here with this move?
Listen, the Knicks are so desperate to be relevant that you can't kill them. But Jalen Brunson's a nice player, and I know he played great against Utah, and I know he averaged 60, but it's still Doncic's team. I mean, he's going to make them that much better. They're going to move heaven and earth and give him $110 million, bring the father in and everything else to go out there and to make Brunson the sort of the poster boy of the franchise. I mean, I know they probably feel they have to do it. They charge $1 million for those seats, and it's 19,000 of them they got to fill every day, and it's New York City and it's Broadway. Need to be, talked about. But, I mean, do we think Brunson is a guy that is going to bring them to a second-round playoff series? He's not. So I understand it. Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, he's not like if he was a transitional, big-time alpha dog player who could be a big piece to a championship, you can see it. He's not that.
So the Knicks right now, they have 11 first-round picks in the next 7 years, 8 of which they can trade. So they have 8 tradable first-round picks, and they now have $30 million in salary cap space. The Dallas Mavericks kind of decided, from what I've been told about 2 days ago, that they were not going to be able to pay Brunson, and they are willing to do a sign and trade with the Knicks to help Brunson get to New York. The reason that the Knicks don't need it now; they've cleared the space. But the reason that's interesting is that when I was talking to league executives last night, they wonder, do the Knicks have something else up their sleeve? Because they could still get Brunson in a sign and trade and still have maneuverability, and they have these 8 picks they can trade.
Okay.
Is there another player that they're looking at? So I know that they have some interest in DeJounte Murray with the San Antonio Spurs, who teams are calling about, and maybe the Spurs are. DeJounte Murray was an all-star last year. He's still not going to be somebody who walks down the street in New York people are going to recognize, at least not right now. But that would be interesting if they could. Are they after them both? The other thing is, could they do the Brunson deal and then keep those picks in the holster for the moment when a star player says, all right, I got to get out of my situation? Because the one thing the Knicks have done, they've positioned themselves to be able to go after a star because their books are relatively clean.
Okay.
And they've got all these picks. But no star players in the last couple of years have said, I want out of a certain situation. We haven't had that really take place. And so the Knicks are kind of just sitting there with this bounty. Do they hold it, or do they try to do something in the short term? So the thing that you worry about the Knicks is, so this is going to be a $100 million deal for Brunson. They've got Julius Randle on a $100 million deal. Very nice players, neither of them, as you say, an alpha dog.
Yep.
They have Evan Fournier on a $70 million deal. Nice player, maybe not even a beta dog, right? Maybe
Correct.
he's
erratic.
maybe he's a Charlie
He's
dog.
great. Next day, he's not so
Right,
good.
okay. R.J. Barrett is eligible for a contract extension of in excess of $100 million this summer. Are you giving him that?
Oh, they're giving it to him.
Okay, so now we got $400 million potentially on 4 guys who individually, I like them all. I mean, Fournier set records for the Knicks for 3-pointers last year. That's a desirable player. And $70 million is a lot, but it's not like fall on the floor awful. But now they got $400 million tied up in 4 guys. Their books aren't going to be as clean. You know, and are those players good enough that if a star comes calling and says, I want to be a Knick, that you could trade? So that's really where the wager is that can they be in position when a star player raises his hand? But I'm going to tell you, there's like, people thought maybe Karl Anthony Towns would someday say, I want to go back home, I want to go to New York. Karl Anthony Towns is about ready to sign a supermax extension. You know, Devin Booker is about to sign a supermax extension. You know, these guys are not coming to the market, and that's what's causing problems.
But do all 4 make an alpha dog?
Alpha puppy.
Alpha.
I mean,
No, seriously though.
It makes 43 wins.
Right, exactly. Yeah. But to Chris's point and to Brian's point, if you're going to be a Jalen Brunson, are they expecting him to be an alpha dog?
Yeah.
Because they don't have it right now.
They can't. There's no way they do.
I know there's no way they can't. But these are the New York Knicks, Wendy, that we're talking about, that they have higher expectations for people. When they signed Evan Fournier last year, they made it seem like he was the second coming of Larry Bird. From that standpoint, I'm thinking, well, I've seen Larry Bird. He's no Larry Bird. Fournier's a nice shooter, but he's a 20-20 guy. He can score 20, give up 20 on any given notice. More than ever before, the Knicks are always going to be a franchise at a crossroads because they overinflate the expectations of players that aren't superstar players.
Yeah.
To your point, Mad Dog, he's a nice player, Jalen Brunson. Is he a difference maker? No. Can he be a difference maker next to Luka Doncic? Sure.
He'd help, yes.
There's no doubt. That's why Dallas said, you're asking for too much money. We're not going to do that when we got Christian, when we got Luka Doncic. We can find a Jalen Brunson not at $25 million per year when it comes to a contract. The Knicks are basically telling everybody, this is our big free agent signing because they know, Wendy, they can't get anybody else.
Maybe there's something else. And I wish I could say, oh, yes, I know it's coming. But
right.
There might be something else that they're doing.
And the Knick issue is with getting free. First off, nobody wants to play in New York City because
Apparently
the fans
not.
and the media are going to go crazy.
Yeah.
Number 2, the weather's lousy. And that's a factor. They don't want to play. And number 3, the training camp is 35 miles away.
In person.
And that's a 2-hour drive in traffic on the Hutchinson River Parkway. I just did it this morning. It's 2 hours. So nobody wants to go have their training camp and purchase and then play the games at Madison Square Garden.
That's a good point.
It's a major. And you know, there's a reason why Durant and Irving and LeBron and Kyrie and Kawhi didn't come here.
Right.
The Knicks are doing. You know what the Knicks are doing? They're doing their damnedest to be a first-round playoff fodder for a good team.
Yep.
43 wins and get murdered by the Celtics in the first round.
Well,
That's what they're doing.
I think we could go on about this for a very long time, but we have to take to a break. Thank you, Wendy, for joining us. And still to come on First Take, Baker Mayfield says he's ready to move on from Cleveland, but should the Browns... Welcome back to First Take. QB Baker Mayfield didn't completely rule out the possibility of repairing this strained relationship with the Cleveland Browns on Tuesday in the event that the NFL suspends his replacement, Deshaun Watson, in the 2022 season. Mayfield added that the Browns would have to be the ones to start that process and that he's moved on and looking forward to a new team.
Is it a little unfair that you still don't kind of know where you're going or what's going to be happening?
I think I got frustrated with it not happening before, like mini camp and all those things. But that's the stuff that's out of my control. And so, let those things happen and fall into place. And so right now I'm just controlling what I can and enjoying this.
A lot of people think if they didn't have a quarterback for the next year, would there be any chance of reconciliation there?
No, I think for that to happen, there would have to be some reaching out. But we're ready to move on, I think, on both sides.
A lot to unpack here. We've got Courtney Cronin here with us. Now, Freddie, I'm going to start with you. Should the Browns want Baker back?
Well, we're both Bruce Springsteen fans, so I'm going to use a line from one of my favorite Bruce Springsteen songs. Just for you, Chris. They made their choices, and now they'll never know, from Prove It All Night.
Wow.
The Cleveland Browns made
Darkest
their
on the edge of town.
That's right. That's right. The Cleveland Browns made their choice, and they shipped away a guy that gave it up for their franchise last year. And Baker Mayfield's not a great quarterback. We all know that. This is not new news here with him. But you decided that a guy who played hurt, played injury-filled last year, and then you give up on him for a Deshaun Watson, who's a better quarterback in terms of talent. With all the backs that he brought with him, Cleveland can say all they want. They're not going to make that phone call. They can't bring him back because they already made that choice, because they told everybody, no matter what he did for us, we don't care. It's about winning a championship, and he can't be a championship quarterback no matter how much he laid it on the line. Baker Mayfield wouldn't pick up the phone anyway, but if you're the Cleveland Browns, you told everybody, this is not our guy. You can't go back. They made their choices, and now they'll never know.
Yeah, I want to disagree with him. I want to yell at him. It's easy with Stephen A because he's nuts, but he's making sense. I think Freddie hit it right on the head. Yeah. I know on the morning thing I said I can go the other way, but I think you're probably right. They are not winning a Super Bowl with Mayfield anyway, and that's what the Brown goal is. They haven't been to a Super Bowl since '64. So as a result of that, it's not worth your aggravation. Watson's not. I don't think Watson's playing this year.
No, I don't. Okay.
I don't know that, but I think Watson's out for the year. So that means you have to make a decision if you're Cleveland. Okay, we're not making the playoffs with Brissett. He's going to win 7 games. If we have Mayfield, we probably can win 10, and maybe we're a wild card team. You're going to lose probably anyway. So as a result, you might have a better season, but at the end of the day, Watson's the quarterback in 23. You're probably better off just to suck it up and realize, let's play Brissett. Maybe we get Watson the last 2 games of the year, and let's see if we can manage the season and let Mayfield go on as very well. So Freddie is 100% right. I think he's right.
Wow.
How about that?
Pigs are flying everywhere right now.
I want to disagree with you. Say something dumb so I can disagree with you.
Don't worry, the show's not over yet. I can guarantee I'll say something dumb by the next 2 minutes. Courtney and Victoria test it. There will be something dumb said by me in the next couple of minutes.
All right, Courtney, what about you?
Well, I think the Cleveland Browns light their season on fire effectively if they defer to Jacoby Brissett for this year if Deshaun Watson's not able to play. I understand the want from Baker Mayfield and potentially with the Cleveland Browns to potentially repair this. I think that, as I said yesterday on the show, that bridge has been burned. The tinder that's left from that wood has already been incinerated. They should move on, and the Cleveland Browns should consider trading for Jimmy Garoppolo. The way that this whole thing should work out is that they should send Baker Mayfield via a trade to the Seattle Seahawks, because we all know that they need a quarterback desperately. And then the San Francisco 49ers, a team that's up against the cap and has to give extensions to Nick Bosa, to Deebo Samuel, they should send Jimmy Garoppolo to the Cleveland Browns. Now, I know Jimmy's due $25 million this season. Fortunately for the Browns, I know they're on the hook right now for Baker Mayfield's salary, so if you move that via trade, that's a good situation. They've got $42 million in cap space. They can absolutely make that happen, and it's an upgrade over Baker Mayfield for a team that has a really good roster, that wants to contend in the AFC North, and would be getting a quarterback who, in his first season as a starter with San Francisco, took this team to the Super Bowl, and then last year brought them to the NFC Championship. I think it's a no-brainer. Go after Jimmy Garoppolo. He's your best option.
It's not terrible. I mean, I like it. I don't know how much better than he is than Mayfield.
Yeah.
I don't know how much better
Yeah.
he is, but I understand the theme. I don't know if Seattle wants me. You know, Mayfield's weird because he's not good enough to build your team around, but he's better than the Drew Locks, the Jameis
Sure.
Winstons,
Yeah, sure.
you know, Sam Darnolds. He's better than that, but if you bring him in, you're not winning a Super Bowl. So it's a weird guy to, if you're a GM, to invest your future in. Garoppolo is kind of the same way, where he's pretty good, but do you really think that he is the guy who can? But the one thing about Garoppolo is he knows when he goes to Cleveland, he's only probably playing there for 1 year anyway.
Absolutely.
And he can build up his
It's a
resume. So I
rental.
think Courtney probably hit it right. I think she's probably 100% right. It's probably a pretty good idea.
Well, and if you're Jimmy G, where would you rather be?
Cleveland.
Oh, that rhymed. I liked it.
Yeah, he does.
Well done. Points.
Cleveland.
Yeah, it should be
He's
Cleveland.
got Lance, and Shanahan loves Lance. You're never going to play there, so go to Cleveland.
Right now, because to your point, Chris, he is going to be in that 1 year deal, and you get a chance to show exactly for your next team. The problem for both Jimmy G and Baker Mayfield, timing. Everybody has a quarterback that they like. Everybody has a quarterback that they just about believe in, or for in the case of the New York Giants, a Daniel Jones, where he's going to be on a 1 year contract. He's got to prove himself to get that deal. Tua Tagovailoa in Miami. He could be in his last year in Miami. So there could be options next year. But just about everybody else has a quarterback that they believe in. Chargers with Herbert. Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. The Jets hope that Zach Wilson can be that guy. Buffalo has Josh Allen. Patriots have Mac Jones. I can't remember, and Chris, you and I go back for more than a minute watching football. I can't remember a time where so many teams didn't have as many quarterback issues. It usually used to be half of the league.
Not that many. It's 4 or 5.
It's 4 or 5, tops. So if you're Baker Mayfield and Jimmy Garoppolo, you're hoping that a team comes calling sooner or later, because the longer you're away from a training camp, the less you have a chance to show exactly what you're made of to be for a next team that's going to be out there, because so many teams don't have quarterback issues, at least right now, 2022 and possibly 2023.
Well,
Soon as
Freddie,
somebody
too,
gets hurt.
with Baker Mayfield, he's still, or excuse me, with Jimmy Garoppolo, he's coming off the shoulder surgery. He's just about to start throwing. He's supposed to be on schedule to do that. So if he can prove in a fully healthy season in a team that would be his for potentially the entire year, if Deshaun Watson is suspended the length of the season, he can set himself up to make a really nice payday going beyond the season. Like, I think he might have to negotiate some of the terms of his contract and potentially lower that number from where it's at right now, because 25+ million, the amount that he could earn this season, is quite a lot for any team to take on, especially with what the Cleveland Browns might have to do with Baker Mayfield's contract as well. But I know it's a small sample size with him as a starter. He's 33 and 14 as a starter in his career. He's one of 9 quarterbacks with a win percentage of over 700 with a minimum of 30 starts. That's pretty nice company for Jimmy Garoppolo to be in. So can he prove that long term? Can he prove that he's the guy beyond just 1 year? I feel like the Cleveland Browns are the one team that would give him the best opportunity to set himself up for the future.
I think that's fair. I think you can make, and he's better than Mayfield. I mean, I asked you right now for a game to win, a season to play.
Okay.
I said the 2 quarterbacks you're going to take Garoppolo because he's done more in his career. He's won a Super Bowl, NFC Championship game. I think you got to take Garoppolo. No?
I want to take Mayfield, but I can't. And here's why. Because I've seen Mayfield way too many times look really good and then look really awful. I go back to the first game of the regular season against the Kansas City Chiefs. In the first half, he was dynamite. Second half, nothing.
Yeah, very erratic.
Very bad. Garoppolo, we can't. I hate when people use this term, system quarterback, because you got to play well in the system. And to Courtney's point, he's won over 70% of his games, and he was a bad throw away from being a Super Bowl champion against Kansas City Chiefs. And in the second half, he was really good in that Green Bay Packers ball game. So I'm not going to go against you when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo over Baker Mayfield, because at least I've seen Jimmy Garoppolo, and they had to have a throw being made. he was able to make that throw more than Baker Mayfield,
100%.
even on a short sample
Well,
size.
think about it for a second. If he does not overthrow whoever the receiver was in the Chiefs Super Bowl,
Yeah, I can't remember his
it
name.
was wide open.
He missed
They
him.
win the game.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. But he's one of those guys, Garoppolo, that makes that bad play in the most inopportune time.
Yeah.
And that's what drives you crazy. But here's the one thing that Courtney did not raise that's interesting. How about if Shanahan and Lynch have decided that Lance is not necessarily their guy at the position? They are a team that's a now team. They got a good defense. They got a good defensive line. Samuel's an excellent player. They got a great tight end. They did get to the NFC Championship game. Could have won.
Right.
And how about if they have decided, and they're not going to tell anybody, that, you know what, Lance, he didn't play a lot in college. Last year, he wasn't that impressive. We need Garoppolo here because if Lance stinks, we got to play Garoppolo because we are a championship-level team and may not want to trade him.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to consider that.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Sanders was the one he threw to.
Sandra, wide open, my
Wide
God.
open.
That's still Richard Sherman's
Wide
fault.
open.
3rd and 15,
Yeah.
Tariq Hill.
Yeah.
I'm going to blame him forever.
I mean, that's a whole can of worms that we don't have enough time to open up because we got to get to a
Are you a
break.
49ers fan?
I mean, no, kind of.
Oh, I thought I knew
All
it.
right,
I knew it was something.
Coming up on First Take, the Nets won their standoff with Kyrie, but the pressure is still on. How much pressure, you ask? Well, someone.
Coaching experience is handling this, not having a full or a complete roster for most of his tenure, short tenure with the Nets, to the Ben Simmons drama that came along with them getting him from Philadelphia in the James Harden trade, in which, I mean, Houston has all the Nets picks until 2027. I mean, that's a whole other conversation that started, to Kevin Durant watching Golden State winning a world championship. They're 4th. Now, 2 without him, and people saying, well, now it feels like between Andrew Wiggins and Harrison Barnes, you can just plug anybody in there. Like that conversation circling around that, to the Kyrie Irving situation, watching Boston get to a world championship, and then everything with the pandemic, and he's on a 1-year pretty much deal until he hits free agency. Yeah, you tell me what other team in all sports has more pressure on them than the Brooklyn Nets.
I mean, I think there's a lot to be said there. Courtney's back with us. Now, Mad Dog, I'm going to start with you. Do you agree that Jay Will, what he's saying, that, the Nets are the ones with the most pressure on them to win a championship in all of sports?
Internally, yes, you can make that argument.
Yeah.
Externally, absolutely not. People do not realize, I've lived here, I've been here for 40 years. The Nets are an afterthought in New York City. They're a much bigger story outside of New York City or Brooklyn than they are in Brooklyn. They're last in the league in attendance. The Knicks kill them TV-wise. The Nets are not a big deal here.
Yeah.
I know they got Durant. I know they got Irving. They are not on a day-in, day-out basis. There's not many Net fans in this area. I know that drives them crazy. Look at their history. Jersey, Comac, the Nassau Coliseum. I mean, they've been all Meadowlands.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been all. I mean, they were in the
All
NBA.
time.
All over.
They were in the NBA final against the Lakers and the Spurs, and they're empty seats. I mean, they are not a big deal. So anybody who thinks they are, they do not know the New York market. The team right now that's got the most pressure on them this year in this town is the Yankees. Okay? They haven't been a World Series since 2009. They are 55-20. They got Judge's contract they're going to have to deal with. The Mets are good. They hate Houston. Houston's won a championship and won 3 pennants, a team they never beat. The Dodgers won a title. They got a huge payroll. They draw, 45,000 a night. It's not even close. It's not a discussion. If the Yankees lose before they win it, I can do 2 weeks on the Yankees dropping the ball again.
Yeah.
So it's the Yankees on a day in, day. They haven't, think about it. These are the New York Yankees, and they haven't been to a World Series since 2000. That's 13 years.
Right.
That makes me happy as a Red Sox.
Oh,
fan,
as it
but,
should. And the Red Sox have won
Lord.
4. Remember, that's a good point. The Red Sox have won some titles since the Yankees have
big
last been in a World Series. And the regular season puts more pressure on the Yankees because now at 55-20, and they're going to win 110 games. They got to win the World Series.
Yeah.
All right.
So they have by far, it's not even close. Don't debate it. If anybody says anything, they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Listen to him.
we're a debate
The
show.
Yankees.
Come on,
The Yankees.
it's not the
We are a
Yankees.
debate show.
Mad
Come on
Dog, it
now.
is not the Yankees. And I hear you in terms of the Brooklyn Nets and their history. You are 100% right. I go back to that Daily News headline when they made back-to-back NBA title appearances and they lost, and the headline read, "What can the Knicks do to get to the New Jersey Nets at that time?" I hear you from that standpoint.
Yep.
But I'm talking about 2022. I'm talking about 2023. When you got a polarizing guy like Kyrie Irving, when you got a polarizing guy like Kevin Durant, two guys that, let's be honest, are not liked players inside and outside of New York. Brooklyn Nets fans like them because now people are talking about them. Outside, Kevin Durant has been that villain, especially going back and forth with people on social media. Kyrie Irving is always going to have the villain hat on no matter what people think about him. That's going to be the standard operating procedure when it comes to fans, casual fans or hardcore fans. But when you have these two polarizing figures, it makes them having the most press anybody in sports. The problem with your Yankees argument is we're not talking about the Stormtrooper Yankees. We're not talking about Steinbrenner's Yankees. We're not talking about Reggie Jackson. We're not talking about those guys. We're talking a very likable team. Aaron Judge, you can bring him home and hang out with your parents. Giancarlo Stanton, he can bounce at the door of the bar and keep things in order. When you have an unlikable team that the Brooklyn Nets have seemed to be, and people don't want them to win a championship, when they win or if they win, there's going to be a lot of either very happy people or weeping and gnashing of teeth. If the Yankees win a World Series, Red Sox fans like Victoria Arlen don't want to hear it. They want them to stay down where they are. It is clearly, in my opinion, more than the Yankees, the Brooklyn Nets are the most pressed anybody in sports.
Courtney, we'll get to in a second. I want to interrupt her, but this is a fan thing. The fans, if the Yankees don't win this year, they will take a lot of grief. It's about time they win something, Freddie.
Because they're Yankees fans. It's because Yankees fans like you have made this whole culture.
But that's what pressure's about, though.
We're not talking about the fans feeling the pressure, but the team feeling the pressure. In the team. Yankees fans always under pressure.
Courtney, please tell me you're not going to say Yankees. Please tell me you're not going to say Yankees.
I'm not. I'm going to agree with what Freddie was saying, just from the standpoint that the Brooklyn Nets leveraged their sanity. So when you do something like that to make all of these pieces fit together and somehow work to be the best team in the East and to win a championship, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on you to make things happen and to do it now. All that they just did to bring back Kyrie Irving and all of the drama that comes with that and fitting everything with Kevin Durant, making him happy, seeing if this Ben Simmons trade is actually going to pan out as a good thing. Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on them in the NBA to win a championship. They have the most pressure of any team in the league. But you both are wrong because it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the only team sports-wide that has expectations on them that are this high. Tom Brady didn't come out of retirement, guys, to make the divisional playoffs again and to lose. He's looking for his 8th ring, so the pressure that's going to be on him, that's going to be on Todd Bowles in his first year as the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get this team past the likes of the Green Bay Packers, the Los Angeles Rams, among the powerhouse teams in the NFC. It's immense on this team. Like Tampa Bay, if they don't win a championship this year, after all Tom Brady did to come back out of retirement, how are we going to remember this swan song of Tom Brady's career? Is he going to have to play until he's 50 to meet those expectations? So no, there is no way you can make me think any other team in sports right now has higher expectations and more pressure on them than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, no.
I'm with Courtney. Let's go. Yes.
He won a championship 2 years ago, and he played well against the Rams. If Brady plays well, what's the pressure? There's nothing there.
Come on now. Exactly.
But it's not about playing well.
Absolutely.
It's not about just
no
playing
way
well.
Tom Brady has more pressure.
No
way.
About 2 years.
Come on. I'm with you.
If Brady goes 6-11, he's not going to be the greatest quarterback of all time?
Sure.
No, he still is,
Well,
but he's going to go out with the win.
But that's what it is. You have to, if you are already the greatest quarterback of all time, no matter what you do this year, what difference does it make?
Courtney, he doesn't have the most pressure of anybody in the NFL. That's Aaron Rodgers of Green Bay for all that Aaron Rodgers has done.
Hey, I love this guy.
But nobody.
There you go.
They have the second best odds right now to win a Super Bowl. Nobody's giving that same respect or those same expectations to a team that just lost its best receiver in Devontae Adams. So that's why Green Bay is not in that argument. How are we going to remember the final years of Tom Brady's career, Mad Dog, if he ends up losing a Super Bowl this year? He didn't come back to make it to the divisional playoffs and then lose. He came back to win a Super Bowl. Otherwise, what is he doing?
Nah.
Out of retirement.
2 years
He's
ago.
not
Now, if they lose 45-41 in LA in a NFC Championship game, where's the pressure on Brady? He played great against the Rams. Nobody said a word.
Still didn't win
It's
the
not
championship.
about Brady.
Yeah, it's not.
He's
You're
won
right.
7 titles.
Yeah.
You can't
You don't have pressure
when
with
you
7
won
titles. Exactly. That
The
doesn't
Yankees-
match up.
The Yankees
When
haven't won
winning
in
is the expectation.
Yeah.
Winning is the expectation for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And
when
with
you have a
Brady.
quarterback who has won 7 rings, he's expecting his 8th. Everybody on that team he holds accountable of reaching his goal. It may not be their own individual goal. They might be happy, like Mad Dog said, of getting to the NFC Championship and losing 45-41 to the Los Angeles Rams, knowing that they gave their best effort. Tom Brady is not that guy. Those expectations from the GOAT extend to everyone else on that team. So they're all going to be feeling it. And if they don't assume all of those responsibilities that come with being Tom Brady's teammate this year, they're not going to be able to reach the level that he expects his team to do. So anything short of a championship for Tom Brady this season, after everything he did to come back, is a failure.
Well, but that's for Brady individually. This is about a team. This is not about a
He is
particular
the captain
player. It's
of
about
that
a team.
entire ship.
They got 2 rings. They won 2 Super Bowls, and they won in. I don't buy Tampa.
Yeah,
and Courtney does a great job.
Are you still riding the Yankees train?
It's not Tampa. It's not, and it's not the Nets either. I'm surprised they do.
It's definitely the Brooklyn Nets. It's more than both of your teams. It's clearly
about
them.
the fans. Who's going to give the Nets grief if they lose? You and me? Who cares?
Well, you know who cares? Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving do, because they're tired of getting grief from everybody. They really are. They're going to care about that because let them not win a championship, and they got to hear from you or Stephen A. Smith. Kevin Durant might have 8 burner accounts to come back at you guys. They clearly will pay attention.
Stop with that too.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation.
Go watch Gaslit with John Mitchell and Mark.
Okay, we've got to take it to a break. Coming up, the Suns were bounced by Luka and the Mavs in a game. Oh my gosh, in a Game 7 blowout. Has the championship window closed in Phoenix? Mad Dog said, major again.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't see that at all. She provides such great drama, though. This was a tremendous sporting event. It really was. And Serena had a match point in the 3rd set, and she was up 4-0 in the tiebreaker. Now, it's a 10-point tiebreaker this year. It's not 8 first to 7, it's first to 10. So it's not as quite an advantage, but that's a terrible loss. But here's what Serena's got to do. Is she want to be a tennis player or not? She's 40 years of age. You can't show up and play 1 match in a year and expect to win, even against somebody like Harmony Tan. So we will find out what her commitment is because she needs to play a couple of tournaments this summer before the U.S. Open. You almost get the idea, Freddie, that Serena's playing for her brand.
That's a great point.
Instead of playing to go out there and win tournaments.
Yeah, that's a great point because at 40 years of age, if you're not going to be in that kind of shape, playing a doubles tournament the week before.
That's not 2 matches.
2 matches, yeah, and you're not doing all the work because you got somebody helping you out. And she's made 4 finals since winning her last major in 2017 Australian Open. She has not been able to push through. She got 23 on her mind trying to get to Margaret Court. But you're right. You got to pick one or the other. If you're going to commit, you got to play matches. If you're not, it's okay to walk away. You've done so much for the game of tennis. You don't have to prove anything else to anybody unless you want to prove something to yourself if you're Serena Williams.
Well, here's the problem with Serena. The more times she loses in these first-round matches, it's going to hurt her historical legacy.
That's a great point.
So that's another issue. I mean, this was, but again, let me just highlight this one more time. Freddie and I were talking about this before the show. This was a tremendous event.
Great theater.
Yeah.
This wasn't anything that wasn't, I'm not making this up. This tennis match, which was over 3 hours, was phenomenal to watch. And then you had Nadal play beforehand. That's a tremendous ESPN. You got Nadal at 11, and you got Serena at 3.
Yeah.
Doesn't get better than that, baby.
But now you need Coco Golf to make a run.
That's another point.
Yes.
You know, he is a good tennis. And he likes music. He's singing Crosby, Stills, Nash.
All right, let's sing our way. How about we sing our way to the association? Because the Phoenix Suns, DeAndre Ayton is about to become a restricted free agent, and all NBA teams can start to make offers with the Suns being able to match. However, looking at max contract options, the Suns would have to give Ayton an extra year and almost $3 million more per season compared to the rest of the NBA. Here's more from our very own Adrian Wojnarowski on Phoenix and their options with Ayton.
I think there's a lot of sign-in trade options, scenarios out there that they'll be able to start working through once we get to Thursday. The Suns have had a reluctance to give DeAndre Ayton a max contract, but I do believe it's available to him out in the marketplace. Can they find a package of assets back that makes sense for them?
All right, Courtney, I'm going to start with you. Is the Suns championship window closing? Very quickly.
It doesn't have to close if they're aggressive in what they do in free agency. Let's not forget, this is a team that was first in net rating, fifth in offense, third in defense, and fourth in effective field goal percentage last season. Last I checked, that makes a very good basketball team. But the way that they played against Dallas, that's our lasting memory of Chris Paul at 37 years old, absolutely disappearing in that series. Devin Booker wasn't great either. Like, they have a lot of holes that they have to fix in order to upgrade this roster to contend in the West. Now, what Woj was saying about DeAndre Ayton is interesting. I like the idea of a sign and trade for the Phoenix Suns. I'm just not so sure that you're going to get a star player in return. But if you can get some role players, get some guys that can fill out the rotation for the Phoenix Suns, I say do it, because it's clear that there's a reluctance from this team to give Ayton what he's eligible for on the rookie max extension. So if you can find another team, and trust me, there's plenty that see what this guy did 2 years ago in their run to the NBA Finals, in the way that he played against other big men, there's going to be teams that want a young, talented center in the fold. So I think that they could get a considerable package back. I'm just not so sure in terms of finding another star to go alongside Chris Paul at this point of his career, and also to align with Devin Booker, that you're going to get that. But if you want to contend in the West, you have to be aggressive in free agency and throughout the rest of this offseason if you're the Phoenix Suns, because everybody else will pass you up, because everybody else is getting better.
I'm not sure what Phoenix should do. It's a tricky call. For whatever the reason, you would think this would be a no-brainer. He's a young center. He's played pretty well, and they're thinking about not giving him what he wants from a max standpoint. Maybe they know more about the player than we do. You got to keep that in mind. But he's got a lot of talent. He's good going to the basket. He can make a 12-foot jump shot. He's athletic. I don't think the window's closing, though. Because I do think that with Booker, you have to figure Paul, after he did an absolute no-show and was a disaster and got destroyed by Doncic in Game 7. Doncic had 27 points in the first half of Game 7, and Paul did not score. And this is supposed to be one of the great point guards in the history of the NBA. I mean, so you would think that that would fuel Phoenix.
Right.
So they did win 64 games. So I would think, like Courtney said, I would think the window is still open. I just don't know what to do with the center. That's a very tricky call.
It's interesting. I'm glad you raised the point, because whatever's going on, Chris, with DeAndre Ayton in Phoenix, whatever personality conflict is going on, usually a guy like that about to get into the prime of his career in a new age NBA, that way he can play.
They give him the money.
They would have given him money already. They have not. Right. They haven't even been hesitant. They basically said, no, we're not giving this to DeAndre Ayton. Based on that alone, I'll say that their championship window is closing, because you and Courtney made the point in terms of the Western Conference. More than ever before, second by second when it comes to professional sports. You can't just be in the middle. You either got to be here high, you got to be low. Phoenix right now is a high team that won 64 games in the regular season, like you mentioned. But now the question is that if they don't re-sign DeAndre Ayton, then who's going to replace him? Do you go out to Rudy Gobert in free agency and bring to be a rim protector where he can do screen and roll but doesn't have the offensive skill set that DeAndre Ayton possesses? Chris Paul's not getting any younger. The NBA is getting younger, but Chris Paul's not getting any younger. And everybody now has a blueprint to say, if you attack and wear out his legs, you're going to wear out that 37-year-old point guard. He's not going to get to being an elite point guard once again because of his age. And that's not a knock on Chris Paul. That puts a lot more pressure on Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges. And they're hoping that whoever's the backup point guard, they get somebody else, or if they go with the young man behind Chris Paul, that he can do that. He's not ready to be a primetime player. When you got all those questions surrounding a team that won 64 games, and like you said, Luka Doncic has had his way. It looked like, he made what I call circus shots, where you do that and you can ride the elephant in the circus. And that's how he destroyed Phoenix in that Game 7. If that's going to continue to happen, that's why I think their championship window's closing.
That was one of the most embarrassing Game 7 home losses in the history of the NBA.
I agree.
They got booed off the court with the team that won 64 games and went down 40 at the half, whatever it was.
That would have never happened in the 80s and 90s.
No.
Bob Cousy wouldn't have happened with Bob Cousy.
Negated everything they had done.
You're not drawing me off sides with the whole J.J. Redick thing. I'm not doing that.
All right, Courtney, come on in this, please. Please help me out here.
I mean, just take a look at everybody else's roster in the West. Take a look at the Golden State Warriors. Take a look at a team like the Clippers that all of a sudden now has incredible odds to contend for a championship. And, like we've talked about, that's a team that has failed to meet expectations over the last few years in spite of the talent that they have on their roster. So if you're not getting better, if you're not being aggressive in trying to upgrade some of those spots, and, like Mad Dog was talking about with Chris Paul at this point of his career and finding, somebody else to be a pick and roll partner. If you do move on from DeAndre Ayton, I'm not so sure there's that many upgrades on the offensive side at that position. Rudy Gobert's not that guy. He's a rim protector for you, but DeAndre Ayton will give you more from an offensive standpoint. I'm not sure who they have in mind. Like, that's the thing that I try to rack my brain about here, because it feels like you have a young center who is an incredible two-way player. What's the problem? Why are you not giving him the extension? So is there something more that we don't know about? Potentially, but this to me seems like a no-brainer. I just don't understand why they've been hedging this entire time, and they can't afford to do that because of what everyone else in the West, those who are actually contending for a championship, trying to chase where the Golden State Warriors are, everyone else is getting better. Dallas is going to get better, and yes, I know there's the whole Jalen Brunson thing that you guys talked about at the top of the show. They still have Luka Doncic. Memphis is a very good team. The Clippers look right now like they are a very good team in contending in the top half of the West next year. Where do you even fit the Suns in there? They were the #1 seed last year, won 64 games in the regular season. Yet, if you were to list like 1 through 8 of the playoffs right now, I'm not so sure that you wouldn't have them as a play-in team next year.
Wow. Courtney is right about, Zion Williamson in New Orleans. They're going to be better. Oklahoma City, a terrible team. They good drafting. Throw in Denver with Murray. I mean, 100%. You got to figure the Clippers. Wall goes there. Kawhi maybe plays 40 games. Can we expect that? How about 35?
Maybe 60. Maybe.
You got him too. Courtney's right. It's a very tough conference.
It's a very tough conference. That's a can we don't want to open right now. All right, well, we're going to take it to a break. The NFL kicks off in 71 days with the Rams and the Bills, but which team will be the